Selamat kembali ke Malaysia, Kim Pan-gon. The 56-year-old South Korean has returned to Malaysian football, this time as the new head coach of Selangor FC. And he is definitely no stranger to Malaysian football fans, having guided Harimau Malaya between January 2022 to his abrupt resignation in mid July 2024 during his 2.5 year reign as the head coach. And Malaysian football fans with recent memories will definitely remember what he has done during his tenure as the head coach, where he actually guided Malaysia to their first successful Asian Cup qualifying campaign in 2023 for the Asian Cup finals, which was held in January 2024. For their first successful qualification campaign in 20, in 44 years. Yes, that 43 years, sorry. That is the first time Malaysia had qualified on merit since their last finals appearance on merit, not as co-host in 1980. And that was a monumental achievement that the South Korean, who has had extensive experience coaching in Hong Kong, the Malaysian national team, and more recently with Yusan Hyundai of South Korea in the K League One, has brought to Malaysian football as the head coach. And now, returning to Malaysia as the new Merah Kuning head coach, he has his work cut out for him, especially what has been a rather mediocre first half of the season under first Kazuhito Kinoshi, and more recently a slightly improved turn of fortunes under interim head coach Christophe Gamel, who now returns to coaching Selangor 2 and is also appointed the technical director for the once Malaysia Kingpins in club football. And he will actually find some familiarity, biasa, in the Selangor squad. For 8 pemain were actually called up by him during his time as Harimau uh, Malaysia head coach. Among them, the club captain Faizal Halim, Noah Lain, Quentin Ching, Harif Haikal, Sharul Nazim, Bukhari Ajmal, and the two goalkeepers Kalamullah Al Hafiz and Sheikh Izan. And among the 8 players that he has called up over these 2.5 years, Sheikh Izan and Faisal were the ones who were called up into the 23-man squad for the Asian Cup Finals 2023 held in Qatar in January 2024. And there will also be one player in the Selangor squad who is not a Malaysian, who he will also be familiar with. Their centre midfielder Noor Al Abde, who actually was part of the Jordanian team that defeated Harimau Malaysia 4-0 in the opening Group E game in Qatar. So, with at least one third of the squad already familiar to him, Kim already has the good start as far as knowing how these players work, especially the club captain Faizal Halim, who is one of the most influential figures at the club, and that includes your the Selangor Technical Committee and also I think even the management. So Faizal Halim being at the club will already have provided Kim with the head start that neither Kinoshi nor Gamel has had from the beginning. Still, the South Koreans returned to Malaysian football, this time as the head coach of the rivals of Malaysia Kingpins Johor Darul Takzim, does raise a few questions on whether he's actually going into dangerous territory or bahaya in Malaysian football where it's concerned. For it's actually very rare that a head coach, a coach who has previously coached in the national team, returns to the same country as a head coach, and fans with some memory will still remember the manner in which Kim departed in July 2024, just 6 months after leading the Tigers to a memorable 3-3 draw with Asian giants South Korea in the final Group E game, in which Faisal was one of the standout players of that game for the team in yellow. So the circumstances in which he resigned as Malaysia head coach, with that fateful quote he said in the press conference prior to meeting with the region of Johor Tunku Ismail Sultan Ibrahim, as the next day to clarify these two particular words. Very danger. Actually, if I say as in verbatim, more like bahaya, really. Where actually the fait accompli was he left to actually take over his good friend Hong Yong Bo at Ulsan Hyundai. So, and subsequently he clarified that it was his poor English, which is rather puzzling given that he has actually spent a substantial amount of time and has already set up residence in Hong Kong, China, on clarifying that the very danger is more like a misquote. After meeting the region of Johor, TMJ as is better known, the next day after that press conference where he uttered those words. And now that he has returned to take charge of Selangor, it puts Kim in direct confrontation with TMJ, or rather locking heads with TMJ once more as the head coach of the rivals. And this may be a point not lost on TMJ himself. So could it be where this is the first type of bahaya that Kim Pan-gon will be headed towards? I think maybe not. Maybe it won't be the only one, but I'll elaborate more later. But the good news for Kim, this time in charge of Pan-gon, in charge of Selangor, is Selangor is actually under the presidency of the Raja Muda of Selangor, who also happens to be TMJ's cousin. And unlike TMJ, who is very invested into the running of Johor Darul Takzim and Malaysian football as a whole, the Raja Muda takes a contrasting approach where the running of the club is concerned. Kim does not need to send WhatsApp messages to the Raja Muda on the starting 11 and all that for. The Raja Muda is actually more concerned about the overall state of football in the whole Selangor state at the grassroots level, while providing just the support. I mean, you can say the presence as the president of the Selangor FC. But the Raja Muda is not going to try to interfere or show or tell the Selangor head coach what to do. He has never done that ever since he took on the chairmanship 7 years ago as the president of Selangor FC. So the Raja Muda does leave the running of the club, the day-to-day running of the club, to the technical committee, which is headed by the club CEO Johan Hamidon Kamal, who unfortunately happens to be one of the main nemesis in TMJ's eyes in Malaysian football where this is concerned. But at least Kim does not have to actually send text messages or WhatsApp on the lineup that he intends to use for Selangor, whether it's to the CEO or to the Raja Muda. So he's free. He has full reign on team selection, training, on what he wants to do, match preparation, and everything, including potential foreign signings for the club. Although those names that I mentioned, those nine names I mentioned earlier, all should remain key roles for the Merah Kuning as far as the short term during his time in Selangor and Petaling Jaya is concerned. However, this is where, however, there's a different kind of bahaya that Kim Pan-gon has to be aware of, because even though the Raja Muda does not interfere, Ultracell in particular will have noticed how testy, how anxious this executive committee or the technical committee could be if things do not go well, especially in their continued ongoing struggle to close the gap between themselves and JDT. So, if Kim is unable to produce the results in the short term, don't be surprised if yet another turnover in the head coach hot seat happens at the end of the year. Don't be surprised. This was what happened to Kazuhito Kinoshi, who also arrived a few months, I think, in late 2024, and only to be fired in September last year. So there is that kind of limited patience that this technical committee in the Merah Kuning management has. So, and the longer their obsession with this desperation to close the gap with JDT continues, unfortunately, where Kim Pan-gon is concerned, he's really going to have a much shorter runway as far as this is concerned. And the good news for the Selangor fans and the Ultra Cell in the short term is Kim Pan-gon has been known to build teams on the pragmatic side, and he's also known to know how to uplift teams in the immediate, okay, in the, you can say, the immediate turn after taking over the hot seat. This also includes Ulsan Hyundai, where he actually took over from Hong Yong-bo and continued where Hong left off to guide Ulsan to their back-to-back K-League 1 championship by winning the title for the second half of the year. Even though the 2025 season was definitely one to forget, where Ulsan barely survived relegation, and he was sacked after the poor domestic results, as well as a disastrous Club World Cup where Ulsan finished bottom of their group that included Borussia Dortmund, um, a Brazilian club, and Malomani Sundowns in their group stage in June last year. So this time round for Selangor, the Red Giants, Kim Pan-gon has that pragmatic side of him ever since he began his coaching career in Hong Kong more than 2 decades ago. So he's known to build, particularly I think Malaysian fans will recognize this, the focus on quick transitions and quick counter attacks. While the passing style will vary, there will be no emphasis on trying to play beautiful football from the back, but the beneficiaries in his system will be the wingers and the wingbacks or fullbacks. And his preference is to have a solid foundation at the back, and this is the same thing that he has done at club level and also previously with the Hong Kong national team before he did the same with Malaysia. And with the exception of Ulsan Hyundai, he has actually built a creditable winning record wherever he has gone. And the results, the silverware, speak for themselves. Where I think, unlike Kinoshi or a few other coaches before, Kim is a proven winner. He has already won during the late 2000s and early 2010s. He actually won 2 back-to-back Hong Kong top flight titles with South China. He guided the Hong Kong under-23s to a historic goal in the East Asian Games men's football tournament on home soil, and he also even guided Ulsan to a K1 title in his only stint as the head coach in the South Korean top flight. So Kim knows what he's doing. He comes with that determination to fix things, to make things right, and as he has done with the Hong Kong national team, and to an extent with the Malaysian national team, I think his ability to blend in with the foreign born players and the local bonds, and while promoting a whole next generation of young players under 20, the under 23s to take over the current generation of the main national team. I think this will be something similar that Kim would aim to do alongside Gamel with Selangor as far as he's concerned. So let's hope the Selangor Executive Committee do not get so anxious and decide that they want to quickly cut certain things before they're done. And what is Kim Pan-gon's mission for the Red Giants for the rest of the 25-26 season, the second half of this campaign? The first one obviously is to secure second place in the Malaysian Super League. The Red Giants are currently fourth behind Kuching City and Kuala Lumpur City, 3 points behind. And unfortunately for him, he has his work cut out because these two clubs are well coached and organized under Aidil Sharin and Risto Vidakovic respectively. Second, reach the final of the Malaysia Cup. I know, long shot though. It's a long shot though, although the draw is favourable to Selangor in their half of the path to the final in Bukit Jalil in May, which will be to potentially overcome Negeri Sembilan in the quarterfinals, and to also, if they reach the semi-finals, they have to overcome either DPMM FC or Kuching City, which is not going to be easy by any measures. And maybe for the ASEAN Club Championship Shopee Cup, where they still have 2 fixtures remaining and they're currently second in Group A, but their next 2 games will be at home in Petaling Jaya. That was the good part. The bad news is their closest challengers, Công An Hanoi of Vietnam, who finished runners-up in last season's Shopee Cup, and Thai side BG Batam United, who have recalled Iksan Fandi and a few others. So this is the tough task that Kim Pan-gon has to face. And Kim Pan-gon will have little time to waste with this group of players that he has, especially when he officially makes his coaching debut for the Red Giants when they travel to Brunei to take on informed DPMM FC, who have won 4 in a row to rise to 7 in the standings. And Kim's Duralif debut for Selangor will be at the Stadium Nationals Sultan Hasnal Bolkiah, where they will find a very determined DPM who are keen to make it 5 in a row, and it will not be an easy task for Selangor. So with him still trying to figure out his squad, even though there is some biasa in those 8 Malaysian players and no Rabdi, I think if he's able to conjure a result against DPMM in Brunei, where the Brunei side have made the Hasnal Bolkiah National Stadium their fortress at home, if they are able to even take 3 points off them, then this could be interesting, because an impressive start could go some way to potentially allowing the Red Giants management to breathe, to have you can say, a breather, and not be so anxious to think who their next coach is going to be, given their massive turnover of head coaches. I think 6 permanent. I think Kim is now the 6th coach this decade, permanent head coach, and I exclude the caretakers, which includes Gamel in this case. And whether Kim is able to achieve the dual goal of closing the gap between the Red Giants and JDT, and also be able to infuse the Selangor 2 side, which Gamal returns to coaching, effectively continuing the work that Gamal has initially started this season during his interim spell into the first team as permanent anchors, and also the foreign signings. This is the part where Kim is actually more adaptable, and I think we can expect him to do something in the short term, and also I think for the better part for that short term, and also maybe for the next season, provided the Selangor management don't get jittery first, especially Johan Hamidon. Otherwise, it's going to be bahaya not just for Dr. Johan Hamidon, but also for Kim Pan-gon, especially with the Southern Tigers going lurking around at the corner in Malaysian football.